Hi there. So yeah, you join me in my garage. I just thought I'd film this because I haven't got any other examples of it in the internet that I've seen on the internet even. I'm stripping down this Sega driving cab, Outrun 2. It's in my garage at the minute. I need to get it into my games room, which is through the back garden into the games room. So up some steps. Obviously it won't go on in one piece, it's huge, so we're going to strip it into its component parts. I've already stripped it down to, let me just see if I can switch the camera onto the other camera. Stretch it down onto the old seat here. I'm looking at that through the front facing camera at the minute, but then I remembered that I should probably record this. So that is just four bolts, 13mm bolts, same size that we're going to use to take off the side panel, so that's nice and easy. So I don't know if this is the right order to do it in. I'm kind of making this up as I go along. But hopefully this might be useful to anyone who's doing this in the future. So I'm going to move the seat up into the games room so I have some room to work. I'll cut to the next section.
Oh, right, well that seat was heavy. So, now we've got rid of that. The next bit I'm going to do, I think, is the dash, the bezel, the monitor, and then the side panels, leaving the frame, which I'm hoping, maybe with a bit of assistance, I can move in one go without stripping down any further. So the next bit is to remove the dash, which I believe is either 4 or 6 security Torx screws. These star point ones, where are we? There you are. I don't know if you can see that, but you get the idea. It's usually the biggest one that comes in the set. So let's have a... Now you might laugh and think I'm being a bit anal here, but I've got my trusty labelling machine, and I'm labelling up my screws as I take them out and storing them in a box, so I know what goes where. Because I've taken machines apart before and never know what goes back. So yeah, so once you've got the dashboard screws out, I believe the dash panel should just lift towards you. So let's try that. Let's see. Looks like it's going to move. Let me just pause it and I'll tell you all. Right, so once you've got the dash out, it seems you can rest it on the steering wheel on the actual base platform. There's several connectors here, most of which are colour coded, but I'm going to number them and label them just to make sure I don't muck it up when I put it back. On the topic of making labels for your wires, this Outrun 2 is an initial D conversion, and I've just noticed that there's about 7 connectors in the dash plus the earth wire, which I'm yet to label, but this one isn't color coded, so I would really recommend labeling them in some way, because you can't rely on the Molex connectors being color coded, it would seem. I don't know if that's from the factory or if that's because it's a conversion, but yeah. Another note as well, that earth strap, just for reference, is held on with a 7mm bolt goes on there. Glad I checked that, because there's just an earth wire there that's just yammed under the nut, and there's no connector on it, so I'll be fixing that before I reassemble. Right, next I think I'm going to go for the monitor bezel, which is held in by 5 screws as far as I can tell, so I'm hoping these come out and it just lifts out. So there's the monitor bezel. I'm in the games room now, so this is the space that I'm hoping to put it. So yeah, the monitor bezel was 5 screws. There's no resistance on that. Once the screws are out, it just literally lifts out. One of my screws is slightly longer than the others. One of the top ones, I thought they were going to be longer, but it was only one of them, so I guess that's just a random screw. Before we assemble it, I'm going to give all of this a good dust and polish all these plastics, because they're in pretty good condition. They're just a bit dirty, so should look good. So we'll keep on. Okay, so now we've got this far, I've reached a dilemma. I don't know if to... I think the side panels are coming off last, but I don't know if to take the back panel off, which is just 6 screws, comes off 7 screws, beg your pardon, comes off dead easy, on the top panel, exposing the monitor frame, or if to tackle the coin tower next, because the coin tower is going to have to come off as well. May look at the coin tower. I think I'm going to do that. Right, upon looking at it, my coin tower's got no coin mechs in it, but obviously if you're following this and your coin tower, sorry, your machine doesn't have a coin tower, I guess you can ignore this bit, but looking at it, doesn't look like there's any bolts inside. I thought there would be. What I think we need to do is I think it's these bolts here which secure this whole unit on, and there's this wire here that goes into this back box, which I suspect there's a networking port in as well. So I'm going to have a look what's in there, see if I can disconnect this wire and then disconnect these. I think once we've got these off, I suspect the coin tower will just come off. We should. Yeah, so as I suspected, we should take this panel off the coin tower. There's a couple of there's an earth wire and a couple of connectors here that you can unplug, and I believe there's a couple more screws around here that are going to secure that box on. Then I think it's a case of loosening these bolts and the whole unit should come off as one. Okay, there's another thing I noticed. So once you've got this front panel off, there's 4 more screws. I experimented with taking these wires out thinking you could remove this and this stays on, but I think that's probably harder. So there's 2 screws on this side and there's 2 screws on the top there, so 4 screws hold this onto the back there. So now I suspect if I loosen these bolts, I'm hoping this whole unit's going to come off, but I could be wrong. But okay, so that's the coin tower off. There was a couple more bolts than I thought. There was these 2 at the back, there's this one here, and then there was 2 more hidden inside, these ones hidden inside the actual coin tower itself. All 13mm, except for that one, which mine was loose, so it came off by hand. You can remove that bracket. I'm hoping I don't have to. Oh, this comes off as well. Right, okay, so that will make it lighter. So that's that. I'm going to remove the back plate. Okay, so we've got the top panel and the back panel off. Not much exciting to say about them. They just Phillips screws hold those on. It's pretty obvious what you do. You need to remove the back panel before the top panel comes off because it sits under a lip though. Also be aware that there's going to be this which powers the fluorescent lights for the topper. That will be in a little hole in the top panel. You'll just need to be mindful of not yank it and just feed that through. Once you're in there, you got access to the monitor. I'm going to be a bit cautious because I was only playing this before I took it apart, so this is still going to have quite a charge in it on this back panel. So I'm just going to have a look and have a think about what bit to do next. Okay, to give me a bit more confidence working on this, I've just discharged this monitor with a HV probe and a multimeter, so a bit more comfortable walking around in here now. So I had a look and it looks like this top bar offers structural support to the sides, so I don't think we can move that before we move the monitor. So I think the monitor is the next thing to come out. Now whether I can do this on my own or whether I'm going to have to pause to get some help, I don't know. We shall see. Let's try. Okay, now I think we're on to the hardest bit, the monitor. I've disconnected the power on the VGA cable and I've discharged it. I've loosened the 4 bolts at the front, they're 10mm. Okay, this might be the moment where everything goes disastrously wrong. I've had a look and this monitor isn't really even sitting on these. I mean, you can rest it into these things here, but it's not sitting. So I think you remove this bar. And I think the side panels will stay on because there's plenty of other bolts lower down on the frame. The monitor is essentially currently resting on a piece of metal back here, I believe. So I think once you've got this top panel out, I think you can pivot the monitor forward, grab these struts, because at the minute you can't pivot this forward because it hits this bar. So I can only summarise this bar has to come out. That's my thinking. So let's see if I'm right or wrong. Who knows? Just realised there's a bit of wiring over the back here on this panel that we're going to remove, so we need to just label that up and capture where it goes. Success. So I did that by standing on the base, tipping this forward, removing the bar, which I put on that handy shelf. If you haven't got a shelf next to you, you may need someone who you're going to pass that to, and then just grabbing this by the old back bars here, and then rotating it forward. Now, thing to note, these, same on the top, they have a metal spacer, then the nylon washer. Metal spacer, nylon washer. And then the order that these go in is rubber washer, then metal thing. And the 10mm bolt goes onto that. So that's, I'm pleased with that, because I was worried about that monitor being too heavy. Yeah, that's okay. I'm glad that's out. I think that's the most difficult bit. Whew, bit out of breath. That monitor weighs quite a lot. So, once you got that far, I guess it's just a case of laying up the wires on the back of these side panels and stripping the side panels off. And then we've got the frame. Hopefully we can move the frame in one piece. Let me get these panels off and then we'll see where we get to. Okay, so I've got the panels off. One of my panels is painted, I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but yeah, they were pretty straightforward, just 6 bolts in each 13mm socket. So then you get to this, which is just the base with the upright frame, all the wiring, and the base there. Now, I think, with the help of someone else, I might be able to wheel that down the path and into the place I want to be. I'm just going to check the widths and we shall see, but I think that may do it. Yep, I've done a bit more measuring there, and unfortunately it would seem that the frame will have to come off. Now fortunately I think it's just 8 bolts, a couple of screws. Yeah, I don't think it's too difficult to remove. But unfortunately, real life has got the better today, and I've got to stop for today, so I'll have to carry this on another time. Okay, I'm back. It's much later in the day now, but I want to just get to the point where I've separated this upright frame from the base, and I can figure out how I'm going to do the next bit another day. So I believe this is just 8 bolts and a couple of screws, but we shall see. First of all, I'm going to make a note of take a few photos of how these wires run. So we've got, I think these are audio wires. Actually, no, they're not. I think that's mains wire for the monitor. That comes up on the left hand side, goes along the back of here, and then into the right hand side. So I guess all the wires just kind of come up the central column. If we can leave them in there without having to take that apart too much, then that's all good. May take that off, don't know yet. Haven't really thought that far ahead. So let's just see how we go and where we end up. Okay, so if you take this panel off, just note that there's on mine 4 earth wires that attach to that little earth pole there, again 7mm. So yeah, make sure that you keep them all together, and whatever you take off, you put them all back on. Okay, so looking at it, I think this whole upright section is held on by the screw there. It's to my monitor control board, which I'm going to leave where it is for now, and of course these 4 bolts here and on this side as well. So let's see, I'm going going to have to remove that thing that was supporting the coin tower. That's just a couple of bolts. So let's take those off and see if I can get this moved. Okay, so I was right. Those 8 bolts, those 2 screws, this whole unit just sort of lifts forward. It kind of sits under here, and it sits on these little posts, so it can rest on its own weight without any screws. Obviously not with the top on, but yeah. So when you take it off, you don't need to worry about holding it. So you take those out, and then you sort of rotate it forward, and you can lay it on here. And from here, you can take it off. I mean, obviously, this is all dirty. Before I reassemble it, I'm going to give it a good wipe and a good clean. So now the dilemma, of course, is whether to take this back box upright off. I mean, I'm not going to take the pedals off, but this back upright looks like it will come off fairly easily. However, I suspect I can actually get this whole thing on a sack truck, maybe. I don't know. Not sure. Okay, I've just had a final look at this for this evening. It's getting quite late now, so I'm going to call it a day. I mean, it doesn't take all day. I've obviously done this over several hours and done other stuff as well. But once you've got this off, this grey panel, this foot panel, just lifts out. I mean, on mine there isn't any screws. It looks like there should be, but just probably Philip's head. So that unscrews and lifts out. Then what I think I can do is lay this sack trolley on the top, just sort of protecting the sticker and the base with an old towel. But if I lay that sack trolley on it, I think I can then stand this whole thing up, because it's, I mean, it's not light, but it's not as heavy as some other arcade cabs I've shifted in the past. It's just essentially a metal box with a couple of transformers in and some boards. So check nothing's loose, and I think I can stand that on there and then wheel that into the place. That's the plan that I'm going to go for, I think. But that's for another day, so we'll film that one when we go. Okay, so it's the following day, so I'm now going to try and lift this on the old sack truck through to the garden, so we'll see how it goes.